of the morning to you. This is the newspaper review, and I am Paul Olapipo. You're watching Idea TV this morning, wherever you might be watching us from. How are you doing? How's your Saturday going? I really hope you have a lovely weekend ahead. It's the newspaper review on Idea TV. I'm not here alone. With me here is.
I am Chris Ejofoye. You're welcome.
Okay, now we'll move on quickly to the national dailies to see what has been said across all over national dailies, starting with the nations this morning. We see here that on page 5 that patients are stranded in hospitals as resident doctors begin strike. That's on page 5. Meanwhile, on page 6, Tinubu policies good for economy, says Nigerian Economic Society. And on page 30, as ahead of Osun 2026, artisan, market women and traders drum support for Adeleke and ask federal government to release Osun local government funds. And on page 4, we see the Dangote and Nupeng streamline deal at fresh meeting with Dangote. That's on page 4. Meanwhile, on page 3, Catholic priest apologizes for breaking bottles on female members meeting. That's on page 3. Meanwhile, still on page 3, we also see the Rivers administrator who says that I have fulfilled my presidential mandate. And on page 3 as well, Guinness world record breaker attempts another one again as she completes jollof rice challenge and awaits Guinness verdict. That's on page 3 of the Nations this morning. And on page 4, the big story, we see here that EFCC scale up probe orders Kyari to report daily. Ex-NNPCL boss orders to face trial soon. And anti-graft agency secure court order to detain Suji Moto CEO. That's on page 4. And then also we see here a picture of women who were who celebrated here in Abuja at the Forum of Female Chief Executive Officers of the Government Agency and Organization, and having a number of persons there. I can see Honorable Aisha Ojide and a few other persons, and also we have the First Lady here as well, and also the wife of the Vice President as well in this particular picture. That's a lovely one to see all of the women in the government celebrating together. That's a lovely one. But I really love to talk on the story of the Rivers administrator. It's very interesting because already it's spent about 5 months and we're counting down in days now. I guess it's about 5 days to go now for him to leave the seat, and expecting that the Rivers elected governor, comes back to power by 18th of September. And now he's saying that he has fulfilled the mandate that was given to him by the president. And I feel like we shouldn't be the judge of that.
The judge shouldn't be the judge on his own court. So it's actually,
but
yes,
it's really nice to see
actually,
that he has done his part, and now my own is just for him to hand over the baton to who should be with it. And also a very funny story of the Catholic priests who broke bottle and the female members meeting. It's very interesting because priests, pastors are meant to be seen as the moral standard, exactly. Yes. And now we're seeing a priest breaking bottle. But it's more like or verifying the statement that you can take there are some things that you cannot take away from you.
Yes.
Who you are will always show at the end of the day, and that is what this priest has just showed us on page 3 of the Nations this morning.
Actually, that's it. So I think we move on to the Saturday Punch newspaper. We have Nepal uprising, government supporters, Korea, counter-protest, calls in Nigeria. That is on page 4. On page 8 of the Punch newspaper, then secondly, Dangote dares Nupeng to unmask $18 billion refinery squander. That's on Dangote. Then we have a main rider here which says, indicted Air Peace co-pilot cabin crew says NSIB lied. We don't drink alcohol, smoke marijuana. says regulator rejects smear campaign as claimed. Then we have again women are giving birth on bare floors over xenophobia. This on page 4 of the Punch newspaper. And this is a story of a Charlie Cake. U.S. targets foreigners celebrating killings. On page 5. But he goes to say, why should foreigners celebrate such heinous crime? It's quite unfortunate that you see why. So at times you call it a xenophobic attack. Where see if you go to a country, you don't become something else to the host country. You don't understand. When things are condemnable, you need to be condemned. And then again, you have neighbors who trafficked my 2-year-old daughter to Italy. Asked me to move on. That's a Libya-based Nigerian woman. Cries out. Get this on page 2 of the Punch newspaper. You see, that is this issue of Dangote and Nupeng unmasking the scandal of $18 billion over refinery squander. See, it's quite unfortunate that there are still a lot of financial crime, even between Nupeng, as they are moving issues to and fro between the Nupeng as a National Union of Petroleum Gas Workers and the rest. With Dangote, I think there should be a stability, there should be a mechanism, control mechanism for all our refined products, whether Dangote or national refineries. So that's it on the Punch newspaper.
Okay, it's a very interesting one in front of the Punch newspaper. This one, I mean, there's a lot being said, and I think I'll start with the story of Nigerians in South Africa.
Okay.
There's been a lot of attacks on Nigerians in South Africa, and it's really a sad one. It shouldn't be. They're as bad as I saw a video sometimes this week of some persons going to hospitals and saying publicly that if you are not a South African, stand up and leave now. And they literally escorted everyone who stood up out of the hospital, denying them access to healthcare. We should, I mean, it's a very sad story to see, and now to see that women are giving birth on bare floors. It is really sad, and this is the worst kind of racism I would say at any time, because this is black on black racism. But literally, we should be together actually at every time. We should see ourselves as brothers. Well, within Africa, we should be. It's Africa for Africa, and that is what it should be. We shouldn't. We shouldn't see our brothers as enemies in the real sense. It's very sad when I see news like this. It's not just in South Africa. I also understand that in some parts of Ghana as well.
Ghana is involved,
and it is really sad to see. And the very funny thing is that when they all come to Nigeria, we always welcome everybody with open arms. Okay. But that's that as regards that. And also the story of Dangote and also Nupeng. Well, it's now Dangote and Nupeng has been in the news since sometimes last week. And now, yesterday, they were in the news as regards disagreement again on the memorandum of understanding that was signed. And now today again, we see that Dangote Group has now come out to say, okay, they are daring them to expose those that are responsible for the 18 billion US dollars squander, basically, because over the years there's been allocation to the to rebuilding the refineries in Port Harcourt, in Warri, and also Kaduna, and there has been literally no result. And now Dangote Group is asking, okay, if you are no result of all of these things, you all should expose those that are responsible for the alleged 18 billion US dollars waste on Nigerian-owned refinery, and that's what Dangote is saying this morning. It's a very interesting one. However, I also understand that they are also still going to meet again. That's Dangote, Nupeng, and all at the DSS office again, and also Ministry of Labour to try to see resolve the matter. And also, it's very interesting that yesterday, Dangote delivered fuel to some places free of charge, without charging them for transport and all of that. And then Nupeng has warned that is a Greek gift that people should resist and all of that. But it's a very interesting one to see that all of this is happening. I guess we'll move on quickly to the next national daily, now talking about Saturday Tribune. to see what is being said on Saturday Tribune this Saturday. That we see here on page 8 and also page 25 that ruling house judge for throne of Osun Oba jailed in Osun. And also on page 12 we see here that Ibadan court says woman is Ibadan court says woman is ex-husband's tenant. Others are out of house. And also on page 4, we see that Air Peace and also NSIB field over sacked pilots. That's on page 4 of the Tribune this morning. Meanwhile, on page 3, we see that AFC FTA will unlock Oyo's prosperity. That is what the Secretary General is saying. That's on page 3. And also we see the story of artisans and also marketers drumming support for Adeleke while asking federal government to release Osun State local government funds. And finally, on page 3, we see that FG, I think this should be DSS, meets Nupeng. Dangote asks them to stop war. It's very important that they stop the war. And also refinery to roll out 1,500 trucks on Monday. That's on page 3 of the Saturday Tribune this morning. It's really a lovely one to see yet again. I mean, I think we've mentioned, I also spotlighted all of the news that are currently before us. But however, I just want to talk a bit on the Air Peace and also NSIB. So I think some months back there was a more like a crash landing basically, and after the crash landing, the pilot and also crew members were tested. And NSIB, that is the Nigerian Safety Investigation Bureau, said that they claim that they were positive to alcohol and also some other hard drugs. But however, the pilot and also crew members have come out to say that they don't take alcohol. It's not things that they do. Blah 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 blah. But it's a all back and forth between Air Peace now and also NSIB, and let's see how plays out in the next coming days to see how what happens.
But then it's wrong. I don't think it has ever happened somewhere. Though we can do that, but outside the cockpit, for pilots to be engaged in things like that, alcoholic drinks. Why? No. It's not. It's very unprofessional. If there are pilots who do that, but even if you want to do that, you can do it outside when you are mandated to fly. Taking alcohol, it's not.
But again, the pilots actually has said that he doesn't drink. And in fact, let me read this statement. He said, I don't drink. And secondly, by in 2025, if you are trying to do an alcohol or blood test, we have something called breathalyzer, where you have to do the test right there. You blow your breath into it and basically checks the alcohol in your system. But however, I said that they took some blood samples and also urine samples on the 13th, and then they came back on the 23rd of July with results. I mean, that's a long time actually, but it's a whole lot to say. He said that we're in 2025, we paid a lot of money for flying school and not to be jeopardized by somebody's image and all of that. But I really hope that justice is done to these people, because I expect that they are what's it called? I expect that they're professionals and they shouldn't do anything that obviously jeopardize their job. Not in this case at all. I guess to move on next quickly before we go on a break to the next newspaper. This is the Weekend Trust. That's a weekend version of the Daily Trust. That's a very interesting one. I love the twist to it. Does that mean that weekend is not a day? Well, let's see. Let's see. On page 14, we see that I'm a happy and active retiree. That is what Ambassador Balasani says. On page 18, we see that 12,000 doctors down tools as strike begins. Meanwhile, on page 38, beyond the final whistle, post-football lives of Nigerian icon. That's on page 38. And on page 9, we have a very interesting story, the story of politicians who parted ways with benefactors. And we have two lovely and beautiful images there at the time when they were took. First, the picture of Wike and also the governor of Rivers State, Fubara. And also we have the picture of the president, Bola Ahmed Tinubu, right there with also Ogbeni Rauf Aregbesola, once a governor and also a minister of interior here in Nigeria. And also on page 9, we see here the women of Kannywood. That's a story highlighting the women that are in Kannywood. Meanwhile, on page 18, we see that 3 suspects robbers escape lynching in Abuja. And finally, on page 4, that's on the jackpot story. It says greener pastures getting nearer. That's on page 4. It's a whole lot. I think I'll start off with the most interesting one and also the one that's highlighted with red. That's the story of politicians and also their benefactors. I mean, it's very interesting. Wike and Fubara has been back and forth since for the past 6 months now, I guess. And now, hopefully, Fubara comes back to office, and the other picture that I see as well is President Tinubu and also Rauf Aregbesola. It's interesting because I really do not understand what caused the fight, because they used to be very close and all of that, and then now they feel like sworn enemies now. And in fact, Rauf is currently in ADC and also the vice chairman, I guess. Exactly. And although there's still context as regards that one, and also the story of insecurity, is very sad that every day we see stories of insecurity in our newspapers. Once again, here even close here in Abuja, and also the big story of doctors going on strike. If there's any profession, if there's any profession that shouldn't go on strike, I mean, I feel it's doctors.
Yes.
They should always try to be attended to, because them going on strike causes a lot of harm to our health sector. Our health sector is in a lot of harm, because I understand that there's a lot of brain drain in that sector, and so I feel like we need to look for ways to ensure that our doctors are not also overworked, because I also understand that they are understaffed. Most of them have left the country already, and because of poor pay and all of that. But we should try our best to ensure that we don't have, especially in the health sector at the moment. I don't understand in a state like Lagos, for example, usually when I think it was in the news beginning of this year or thereabout, about how when they employ new nurses, half of them, or sometimes close to nothing of them, remains after 3 months, and it is really, really sad. And they have to always recruit every now and then, so meaning that there's a new nurse in the system probably every 3 months, and now they have to retrain again on boarding and all of that. And sometimes before they finish onboarding, this person has left again. So it's really sad. There's just wasted of the stories.
Based on the issue of emoluments and and benefits in the medical sector.
Yeah.
If people could be living, but either they are going for greener pasture overseas, or they are relocating for a better place, then it shows that there are still greenhorns in the areas of our health sector.
Exactly, yes,
That's the
greenhorns in
problem.
the area of our sector. Okay, we'll go on a quick break now. Once we return, we'll continue with the newspaper review. My name is Paul.
I'm Chris. Welcome to this morning breakfast daily newspaper review. And now we start this session on the Guardian newspaper, which says 1. Why Nigerians aren't impressed with the government. This is coming from revenue and physical mobilization claimed by the CBN governor, Cardoso, and the government of Tinubu. I can see the 3 men there, but then that says a lot of what we're talking about. Then positive test for alcohol, NSIB issues a safety recommendation for airpeace. That is on page 2 of the Guardian Weekend. And you have Osho artisans, market women, and traders. Drum support for Adeleke. Ask FG to release Osho local government fund. It's on page 21, 27 of the Daily Weekend, Guardian newspaper. Guardian Weekend newspaper. Then a positive, we have don't overburden Nigerians with taxes. Bishop urges FG. Tinubu Sanwo-Olu orders extol Doyin Abiola's virtues. That is on page 3 of the Guardian Weekend. Then I have suspects in Charlie Cake's death taken into custody. That the boy who shot Charlie Kirk in the U.S. I think when I saw that report, I was arguing with someone yesterday that it shows the speedy and intelligent method of the civilized world. Because the guy who shot that cock didn't, initially he mixed up with the crowd, then vanished, but suddenly, later after a lot of investigation, I think the father reported the matter and turned him up, and he was arrested. And as at yesterday, I think Donald Trump has even given a verdict that he should be executed. So I think that is the price for committing such a heinous crime. That's on the Guardian Weekend newspaper. Then FG's Bayelsa and Namibia sister city deal. That Nigeria assures Angola on revive joint commission. That is on page 35 of the Guardian Weekend. Energy poverty remains root cause of deforestation. This is coming from Adejuwa on page 10 of the Guardian Weekend newspaper. And then on the same issue of Nepal and danger of ignoring youth grievances. Yes, the case of Nepal is just what we are witnessing in Nigeria. When about 70% of the country's youth are not happy with the system or how the system is being run, you have to give them a listening ear. I think when you have a 70% of our youth not being engaged, for every issue or situation whereby the government looks at what concerns the youth in terms of how they are being fed. Nepal is a case study where a lot of African countries have to start looking at the gross matter that affects citizens when it comes to leadership. Because when you bottled youth grievances, when it explodes, it's something you cannot contain. And we pray that we don't have such things, such experience in this our part of the world, by having what we call leadership that listens and handles situation as it comes. So that's on Nepal. Then police permit for tinted windscreen is unnecessary burden. I think this is from the IGP. This is on page 12. And I think this issue of permit is something tinted glass. I don't know, but I know in Lagos now it's been implemented. At least I think 2 days ago. I paid 50,000 for my car in Lagos to get it permitted. That's what 2 days ago. But it's something that I think it depends on security, and you have to register for it to have a glass tinted. I don't know. I've not seen much of that in Abuja here, but I think it's the same thing. That because of crime, it's a way of curbing crime where you have people kidnapped and then smuggled into a tinted vehicle. So for you to have your vehicle tinted now, I think you must have a police report to that. All these are part of security measures we expect from our security agencies, and it must be enforced. So that's on the Guardian Weekend newspaper. Do you have any paper there?
Okay, well, I would just like to talk on the Nepal story. It's very interesting one to see, and to see how the youth have woken up and trying to take up power, trying to regain what exactly belongs to them. In Nepal, which is home to about over 5.7 million youths, 1.8 million of these youths are not in education, employment, or training, with a number of them being female. And I mean, I'm talking about usually in a place like Nepal, where the global average of youths that are not in employment or education or training is around is less than 30%. Nepal has its own country average at over 40%, probably like 45%, 43.7%. Okay, sorry, the total for both male and female is about 32.5%, and for female alone is around 43.7% or thereabouts. And it's really sad to see that. I mean, Nepal is home to about 31 million people, and the government cannot fund or even give them what the basic needs that they need, which is education, training. Just give them something to do. They don't want to be lazy, basically. And it's a very how do I call it now? It's very sad, and their protest actually can be likened, or is almost like what happened in 2020 here in Nigeria with the Sorosuke generation coming out to speak up for themselves. And it's one that might happen again if all of those if the cases of if we have something similar like what happens in Nepal. I mean, in Nepal, the politicians are having the money to themselves and are not even they're not even doing any work, basically. Exactly. And then there's been a lot of videos as regards that, and a number of them fleeing the country with helicopters and all of that. It's very very interesting to see. But what's bringing it back now to Nigeria? Nigeria, on the other hand, is home to close to 50 million youths. And in fact, another interesting fact is that in the next 10 years, we'll have more youths in Africa than the rest of the world. We're talking about the youths. I think that's 3 out of 4 youths, or 4 out of 10 youths in the world will be in Africa. And that's a very large number. But the thing is that there's also an opportunity for us to ensure that we train all of these persons, especially those that are still in school. And it's in Africa that we have a number of out of school children, people who are displaced, who cannot go to school, who are not in training, who cannot fend for themselves, who don't have any means of livelihood. And we should be looking at helping all of these ones, and so that once we're in the next 10 years, once we're in 2035, we won't have issues like this come up again. We would have a number of youths. In fact, we won't be having the statement of youths are not in education or in training, basically. They will have, or even in employment, they'll have something to do at any point in time. Before we take our tech news, let's take a look at the Saturday Times this time around, and that is the Saturday version of the Daily Times. We see here the picture of Hilda Bassi as she attempts world record cooking of largest pot of jollof rice on page 12. Meanwhile, on page 4, we see that troops intercept a vehicle with 23 million naira cash and recovers 180 Russell livestock in Zamfara. That's on page 4. Still on page 4, we see that Delta government bans bushy bears, artificial hair, long lashes, fake nails in civil service. That's on page 4. Meanwhile, we see a story of Nupeng Dangote refinery clash deepens over workers' rights and also energy transition. And on page 2, police sanctions 8 hearing officers for misconduct in Ondo. And on page 13, we see that Chelsea face 74 charges over alleged breach of agents' rules, as on page 13. Meanwhile, on page 4, we see the story of Air Peace crew tested positive for cannabis alcohol. That's what NSIB is saying, and Air Peace denies this particular report. And the big story here, we see that Malami petitions security chiefs over machineries as arms arrive in Kebbi. I guess I'll take this good news from Hilda Bassi, talking about how she attempted to cook the largest pot of jollof rice, Nigerian jollof, just for notes, so that everyone knows that it's Nigerian jollof.
So it's not the same Hilda Basi that wrote the
Yeah,
world
she's the same
record
one.
before.
Attempted to cook for the longest time,
Yeah,
and it's very interesting to see that she's not just
It's not to
stopping
make a
there.
record again,
It's
exactly.
exactly. If I can do it once, I can do it twice. I can do it 3 times. I can do it 4 times basically. And it's big ups to Hilda Basi for doing that. You know, the biggest spot of jollof, and I really wish I had a taste of it. If I was in Lagos, trust me, I would have found my way to get a taste of that jollof. But it's really sad. I probably will cook jollof today. I'll try or get jollof so that I also have a part of that, or feel a part of it as well. And I guess that's all we take on our national dailies this morning. And we have stories of insecurity again. It's really sad to see. But I guess we would go quickly now to talk our tech news and see what has been said. We have 2 stories today. I really hope we still have time to take both of them. First is the story of Elon Musk's xAI, who lays off 500 data annotators. Elon Musk's AI startup, that's xAI, has laid off about 500 workers from his data team, which trains the company's Grok chat bots. Business Insider reported this sometimes yesterday. Staffs were notified by email that their contract will end with pay continuing until November 30 through access to company system. Though access to company system was cut immediately, the cut affects AI's largest team responsible for categorizing and contextualizing data to help Grok to understand the world. xAI, however, said it plans to expand its specialist AI tutor team tenfold and is still hiring across domains. Also, we see that the move follows the July exit of xAI's finance chief, that is Mike. After just a few months, Musk launched xAI in 2023 to compete with big tech, criticizing rivals over censorship and safety practices. Elon Musk is a great guy, and when it comes to tech, it's one that actually takes a lot of very, I don't say unprecedented, but moves that you won't predict.
Exactly.
Elon Musk can wake up one morning and just fire everybody in X, and immediately he employs new people again, and that's who he is. He has done it. I mean, when he took over Twitter, one of the very first thing he did was to fire a lot of people, and so I feel like if you're working for someone like Elon Musk, you should always prepare.
Be up and doing.
Exactly. It's not about being up and doing. You might deliver, but Elon Musk should just fire for because it feels like you're no longer needed, and that's how it is. But it's really nice to see how X has actually grown over the years. But there are still talks as regards some privacy issues, ethics, and all of that. I mean, it's a lot of talk when it comes to X, and we really hope that all of these things are put into check, especially when it comes to AI. There are a lot of disturbing things as regards the ethics of AI, how to use AI, where to use it, and all of that. And also, we'll take the final tech story. This is coming from the U.S. courts as they reject Google bid to delay Play Store reforms. That is coming from the U.S. Right there. Okay, let's take the news quickly. We see that a U.S. appeal court has rejected Google's request to post a ruling requiring major changes to Play Store in a lawsuit brought by Fortnite's game maker who makes Epic Games. And also the injunction upheld by earlier rulings compels Google to allow other rival app stores to pay and also to allow other rival app stores and alternative payments on Android system and ban deal that stirs competition. Google urged that the order threatens user security and creates an unequal rule compared to Apple, but the courts has said it failed to meet the bar for a freeze. The company may, however, appeal to the U.S. Supreme Court as Epic CEO Tim Sweeney hailed the decision as a win for developers and consumers. If you're a fan, if you use Google Play Store a number of times, you understand that if you're to buy or purchase anything on Google Play Store, even if you're using an Android and you want to purchase anything, you would need to use Google Pay to pay. And Google's argument is that On the other hand, we have our obvious contender, which is Apple. They use also on Apple as well. If in fact, if you want to make an in-app purchase, you need to use Apple Pay as well. So that's the argument. So what exactly is the issue? Why do they want to use another platform for payment and all of that?
Yes, exactly.
And again, it's allowing multiple people into your system actually expose you to several kind of attacks, especially when it comes in the cyberspace, basically. So you have a number of cyber attacks, and it's very. I feel like I also understand on the other parts that probably the game makers feel like there's one way or the other that Google is treating them, especially when it comes in terms of payments, because Google obviously will have their own cuts from whatever is being paid to the game makers. So it's
when it comes to payment or purchase of this.
Exactly. So it's basically back and forth here, and let's see how it goes. Hopefully it doesn't have to go to Supreme Court or the state out of court, and I feel that that'll be best for them. And I feel like Google also has the right to also reject that. Okay, we don't want you guys exactly. We don't want you to be. We don't want you as what's it called? As our. We don't want your app on our exactly on our platform. I guess that's all we'll be able to take this morning. It's been a very interesting ride with you, Mr. Chris. It's been very lovely, and that's to be all on our newspaper review. Till we meet again tomorrow, my name is Paul. Thanks for watching.
I'm Chris.